The deep hum of the UES Thunderchild's engines filled the bridge as Captain Sarah Chen stared at the strange signal on her screen. After 15 years of space exploration, humans had never found proof of alien life. Until now. "Captain, the signal matches no known human patterns," said Lieutenant Wilson at the communication station. His fingers moved quickly across the holographic display. "It's repeating every 12 seconds. Sarah stood from her command chair, her dark uniform crisp despite the long hours of their patrol mission. "Show me the visual," she ordered. The main screen lit up with a view of deep space. There, against the backdrop of distant stars, a ship drifted. Its design was like nothing Sarah had ever seen. Smooth curves of silver metal that seemed to flow like water, frozen in space. "Life signs?" she asked. "Yes, Mom. About 50 of them, but they're weak," replied Dr. Karen White from the medical station. "Their life support systems appear to be failing." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Move us closer. Prepare the medical bay and alert security." She turned to her first officer. "Frank, I want you to—" "Captain." Wilson's voice cut through her orders. "3 ships just dropped out of something. It's not like any jump drive we've seen before." The new ships were massive, each one at least 3 times the size of the Thunderchild. They had a harsh, angular design that made them look like floating fortresses. A message crackled through their communication system. The voice spoke English, but it had an odd mechanical quality to it. "This is Peacekeeper Command Vessel Righteous Justice. The vessel you approach contains criminals against the Galactic Council. Stand down and withdraw. This is not your concern." Sarah's jaw tightened. She looked at the drifting ship, then at the sensor readings showing the failing life support systems. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Channel open, Captain." "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Thunderchild. The vessel we're approaching appears to be in distress. Under international space law, we are obligated to help." There was a pause before the response came. "Your species is not registered with the Galactic Council. You have no authority here. This is your final warning." The silver ship's hull suddenly came alive with light. A new voice, softer and melodic, filled the bridge. "Please, we are Zelaxian scientists. We discovered corruption in the Council's leadership. They seek to silence us. Our children are aboard. Help us." Sarah saw her crew looking at her. In that moment, she knew her next words would change human history forever. "All hands to battle stations," she said firmly. "Shields up. Move us between those ships and the refugee vessel." She took a deep breath. "Let's show the Council what happens when they threaten people asking for help." The Thunderchild's shields hummed to life. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as weapon systems powered up. "The Council ships are charging weapons," Wilson reported. His voice was steady, professional, despite the tension. "Launch rescue shuttles to the refugee ship," Sarah ordered. "Get those people out of there." She turned to her weapons officer. "Target their weapons systems only. Let's try to avoid killing anyone if we can." The first shots from the Council ships were bright purple beams that splashed against the Thunderchild's shields. To everyone's surprise, the shields held strong. "They're weapons," the science officer said in amazement. "They're using standardized energy patterns. Our adaptive shielding is actually learning from each hit." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Human technology, built to adapt and improve, was holding its own against these supposedly superior forces. "Return fire," she ordered. "Show them what Earth's finest can do." The Thunderchild's rail guns roared to life, sending hypersonic slugs of metal at the nearest Council ship. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, proved less effective against simple kinetic force. The first ship's weapon arrays erupted in a shower of sparks and debris. As the battle raged, rescue shuttles reached the Zelaxian vessel. The refugees, tall beings with silvery skin and large, expressive eyes, were quickly evacuated to the Thunderchild's medical bay. The Council ships, faced with an enemy they couldn't easily defeat and having lost their targets, finally withdrew. As they vanished into their strange jump points, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. Tell them everything has changed, and let them know we're bringing guests." As she looked at her crew's determined faces, Sarah Chen knew she had just started something much bigger than herself. Humanity's age of isolation was over, and their first act in the galactic community had been to stand up against bullies. It wouldn't be their last. Lieutenant David Ross sat in the Thunderchild's Intelligence Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from the Zalaxian refugees. His eyes were tired after hours of reading, but what he found made sleep impossible. "Captain Chen needs to see this right away," he muttered, gathering his findings into a simple report. The information was worse than anyone had imagined. In the medical bay, Dr. Karen White was checking on their guests. The Zalaxians were recovering well, their silvery skin regaining its healthy glow. A young Zalaxian child played with a human tablet, figuring out Earth games in minutes. The ship's intercom crackled. "Senior staff to the conference room," Captain Chen's voice commanded. Minutes later, David stood before the gathered officers. The room was tense with anticipation. "What did you find?" Sarah asked, her face showing concern. David brought up his findings on the main screen. "The Zalaxians aren't just random scientists," he began. "They're part of their planet's most advanced research team. They discovered something the Council wants to keep secret." He showed images of ancient ruins. "The Council claims to be the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, but they're lying. They didn't develop their technology. They found it. All their fancy ships and weapons. They're using copied technology they barely understand." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. "There's more," David continued. "The Council has been actively preventing other species from developing their own technology. They destroy or steal any advanced research they find. They keep everyone weak and dependent on them." Frank, the first officer, leaned forward. "But they couldn't stop us because they didn't know about Earth." "Exactly," David nodded. "Our technology developed differently. That's why our shields worked against their weapons. We built everything ourselves, found our own solutions. We don't follow their rules because we never knew they existed." Captain Chen stood up slowly. "And now they see us as a threat." The ship's sensors suddenly blared an alarm. Lieutenant Wilson's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, to the bridge. Multiple Council ships detected." The senior staff rushed to their stations. On the main screen, 5 Council warships hung in space, their weapons charged. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Wilson reported. The message was clear and cold. "UES Thunderchild, you have committed acts of war against the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to comply." Sarah looked at her crew, seeing determination in their eyes. "Send a message to Earth Command. Attach everything we've learned about the Council." She straightened her uniform. "Then send this to the Council ships. We do not recognize your authority to make demands. We are a free species who will defend ourselves and others from tyranny." The response was immediate. The Council ships began to move into attack formation. "They're not waiting 10 minutes," Frank observed dryly. Sarah smiled. "They're afraid. Wilson, broadcast everything we know about the Council on all frequencies. Let everyone in range hear the truth." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The Council ships attacked with overwhelming force, but the Thunderchild had learned from their last encounter. Their shields adapted faster, their counterattacks more precise. In engineering, Chief Engineer Amy Foster worked miracles with the ship's systems. "The more they hit us, the more we learn," she shouted over the comm. "Their weapons are all standardized. They don't know how to adjust." The Thunderchild danced through space, its human crew's creativity proving more valuable than the Council's ancient technology. 2 Council ships lost weapons, another lost engines. The remaining ships began to pull back. But the real victory wasn't in the battle. Across Council space, ships of all species were picking up the Thunderchild's broadcast. The truth about the Council's technological theft and oppression spread like wildfire. "We're getting responses," Wilson reported excitedly. "Dozens of species, hundreds of ships. They're all asking how they can help." Sarah looked at the messages flooding their communication system. Species she'd never heard of were reaching out, offering support, sharing their own stories of Council oppression. "Send them all the same message," she ordered. "The time of the Council's lies is over. Earth stands ready to share knowledge and technology with any species that wants to be free." As the Council ships retreated, David Ross studied the incoming messages. He realized that the Thunderchild hadn't just won a battle, they had started a revolution. Humanity's first major act in galactic politics had been to stand up to bullies and expose their lies. The galaxy would never be the same. Commander Robert Nash stood in Earth Fleet Command's main control room, watching dozens of holographic displays showing ships moving across space. In the 3 weeks since the Thunderchild's stand against the Council, everything had changed. "Another distress call, sir," reported a young officer. 3 more species asking for protection from Council forces." Robert rubbed his tired eyes. Earth had never wanted a war, but they couldn't ignore cries for help. "How many ships do we have available?" "The UES Defiant and UES Liberty can reach them in 2 days," the officer replied. "Send them. Tell Captain Chen she'll have backup this time." Robert smiled, thinking of how one ship's brave actions had started all this. On the Thunderchild, Sarah Chen was meeting with representatives from 5 different alien species. The ship's conference room was cramped with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, others fur, and one species seemed to be made of living crystal. "The Council's ships are gathering here, and here," said Crix, a tall reptilian being, pointing at a star map. His people, the Vorn, had been the first to join Earth's resistance. "They're trying to cut off trade routes," Sarah noted. "Standard tactic to isolate rebels. But they didn't count on human ships being so fast," added Zena, a crystal being whose body sparkled as she spoke. "Your jump drive technology is different from theirs." "Better. Because we made it ourselves," Sarah replied. "Everything humans build, we understand completely. We can fix it, improve it, change it when we need to." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent call from Wilson on the bridge. "Captain, we're detecting multiple ships dropping out of jump space." Sarah and the aliens rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed 20 Council warships appearing in formation. "They're broadcasting," Wilson said. A harsh voice filled the bridge. "This is High Commander Xalax of the Council Defense Force. Your rebellion ends now. Surrender the human ship and all refugee vessels." Instead of fear, Sarah felt calm. This was the moment they had prepared for. "Send the signal," she ordered. Suddenly, space lit up as 30 Earth ships dropped out of jump points behind the Council fleet. The UES Defiant and UES Liberty led the formation. "This is Commander Robert Nash of Earth Fleet Command." A new voice broadcast. "We reject your demands. The people you've oppressed are under our protection now." The Council ships turned to face the new threat, but they had fallen into a trap. From the other direction, ships from 12 different alien species emerged from hiding behind a nearby moon. "You see, High Commander," Sarah broadcast, "while you were gathering your fleet, we were making friends. Turns out a lot of species don't like being bullied." The Council fleet found itself caught between 2 forces. Their ancient weapons were powerful, but they faced enemies who thought differently, who fought with creativity and passion. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Earth ships used tactics the Council had never encountered. Alien vessels, now free to fight their own way, surprised their former oppressors with hidden abilities. In the middle of it all, the Thunderchild led the charge. Sarah watched as her crew worked perfectly with their alien allies. Human adaptation combined with alien knowledge made them unstoppable. "Council ships are retreating," Wilson announced after an hour of fighting. Cheers filled the bridge. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. "Send a message to all ships," she ordered. The Council now knows we won't back down. They'll come back stronger. We need to be ready. Later, in her quarters, Sarah read the latest reports. More species were joining their alliance every day. Earth scientists were working with alien engineers, sharing ideas and creating new technologies. What the Council meant to break them had only made them stronger. Her computer beeped with a message from Commander Nash. Captain, Earth's governments have made a decision. We're formally declaring our support for all species seeking freedom from Council rule. The Thunderchild is being named flagship of the new Allied fleet. Congratulations, you're now an admiral. Sarah looked out her window at the ships gathered around them. Human vessels flying alongside alien craft of all shapes and sizes. Each represented a people who had chosen to stand up and fight. The Council had spent thousands of years keeping species afraid and separate. They never imagined that their actions would lead to the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. And it all started because one human ship refused to look away from others in need. Chief Engineer Amy Foster crawled through the Thunderchild's maintenance tunnels, her tools clinking against her belt. Strange alien devices were spread out in front of her, taken from captured Council ships. After weeks of study, she had finally figured out their secret. Admiral Chen, she called through her comlink. You need to see this. I'm in engineering lab too. 20 minutes later, Amy stood before a group of human and alien officers. She pointed to the dismantled Council technology on her workbench. Look at this, she said, holding up a crystal-like device. Every piece of Council tech has one of these at its core. They think it's just a power source, but it's much more. It's actually a computer from some ancient civilization. She connected the crystal to a human scanner. Strange symbols flashed across the screen. They've been using this technology for so long, they forgot how it really works, Amy explained. They just copy and paste the same designs over and over. That's why they can't adapt when we surprise them with something new. Sarah Chen studied the crystal with interest. Can we use this against them? Amy grinned, already working on it. Give me 2 more weeks. But they didn't have 2 weeks. The ship's alarms suddenly blared to life. Admiral, Wilson's voice came through the comm. We've detected explosive devices throughout the ship. They just appeared out of nowhere. Council spies, growled Crix, the Vorn warrior. They must have sneaked aboard during our last supply stop. Sarah's mind raced. Amy, can you scan for those crystals you found? The bombs must have them too. Amy's fingers flew across her console. Got them. 30 devices. No, wait. 40 devices spread across all decks. Everyone out of the lab, Sarah ordered. Amy, stay with me. Security teams to all locations. Over the next hour, the crew played a deadly game of hide and seek. The bombs were clever. They could shift position when nobody was looking. But Amy's scanner could track the crystal cores. The crystals all work on the same frequency, Amy said as they rushed through the corridors. If I can hack one, I might be able to shut them all down. They found the largest bomb hidden behind a panel in the main engine room. Amy carefully opened its casing while Sarah kept watch. Just like I thought, Amy muttered. They don't understand their own weapons. This is actually pretty simple if you know what you're looking at. Her tools moved quickly, bypassing the Council's security measures. The crystal at the bomb's heart glowed brightly, then went dark. Across the ship, all 40 bombs shut down at once. All devices neutralized, security reported. But Admiral, you need to see what we found with them. In the ship's break, Sarah stared at the prisoner security had captured. He looked human, but scans showed he was wearing some kind of disguise. A Council shapeshifter, Crix explained. They're rare. The Council must be desperate to risk sending one. The shapeshifter smiled coldly. You don't understand what you're dealing with. The Council has agents everywhere. We've had thousands of years to infiltrate every species, except humans, Sarah replied calmly. You didn't know about us until recently. That's why you're scared. She turned to Amy. What else can you tell me about these crystals? Amy held up her scanner. They're all connected to a central network. That's how the Council controls everything. But the network has weaknesses. We could use it to track their agents. Do it, Sarah ordered. Send the detection method to every allied ship and planet. Let's see how many spies the Council loses today. Over the next few days, chaos spread through Council space. Their hidden agents were exposed. Their secret bases were discovered. Every piece of their technology became a liability. In the Thunderchild's engineering lab, Amy worked with alien scientists to understand more of the ancient technology. Together, they began to uncover abilities the Council never knew existed. They had this power all along, Amy told Sarah. They just didn't understand it. But we're learning fast, and we're sharing everything we learn with our allies. Sarah looked at the latest reports. The Council was pulling back, consolidating their forces. They were used to fighting from the shadows, using fear and secrecy. Now those weapons were being turned against them. Send word to the fleet, she ordered. The Council isn't just losing control of their technology. They're losing control of the story they've told for thousands of years. And we're just getting started. The revolution wasn't just spreading through space. It was spreading through minds and hearts as more and more species realized the truth. The Council's power had always been built on lies. Security Officer Brian Murphy crouched behind a fallen pillar in an ancient alien structure. His team spread out around him. They had infiltrated deep into Council space, following coordinates provided by the Zelaxian scientists. Move quietly, he whispered into his comm. These ruins have been hidden for thousands of years. Let's not announce we found them. The ruins stretched for miles underground, filled with technology far more advanced than anything the Council used. Brian's team included humans, Vorn, and crystal beings called Luminary. Each brought different skills to the mission. Look at these markings, said Xena, the Luminary scientist. Her crystalline body glowed softly, providing light. This was a weapons testing facility. The civilization that built this, they were far beyond even the Council's understanding. Suddenly, their sensors picked up movement. Council patrol, Brian warned. Everyone hide. They watched as Council soldiers marched past their position. The soldiers carried standard weapons, but Brian noticed something new. They wore armor covered in the same crystals Amy had discovered. They're trying to upgrade their technology, he reported back to the Thunderchild. But they're just sticking the crystals onto their old gear. They still don't understand how it really works. Maintain your position. Admiral Chen's voice came through quietly. We need to know what they're protecting down there. The team moved deeper into the facility. In a massive chamber, they found their answer. By the stars, Crix breathed. Rows of ancient ships filled the underground dock. They were smaller than Council vessels, but sleek and powerful looking. Unlike the boxy Council designs, these ships seemed to flow like liquid metal. Admiral, Brian reported, we found where the Council got their first ships. This is one of their secret facilities. They've been hiding the original technology they copied. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Intruder alert. All units respond. So much for staying hidden, Brian muttered. Everyone, fighting positions. What happened next would be told in stories across the galaxy for years to come. The Council forces rushed in, expecting to overwhelm the small team. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that fought like none they'd seen before. Brian's human troops used tactics the Council had never encountered. They didn't stand and fight like the Council expected. They moved constantly, using the environment, adapting their strategy every minute. The Vorn warriors charged straight through Council defenses, their natural armor deflecting enemy fire. The Luminary used their light-bending abilities to confuse and blind the Council soldiers. They don't know how to handle different species working together, Brian realized. They've kept everyone separate for so long, they never planned for this. Above the facility, the space battle began. The Thunderchild led a fleet of Allied ships against the Council's defensive line. But this time, they had a secret weapon. Amy's modifications are working, Wilson reported from the Thunderchild's bridge. The Council's crystal tech is turning against them. Through her engineering work, Amy had discovered how to interfere with the Council's crystal network. Their ships began losing power, their weapons stopped responding, and their communications fell into chaos. In the ancient facility, Brian's team fought their way to the control center. Xena interfaced with the old systems, her crystalline form glowing brighter as she accessed the database. "This is incredible," she said. "These aren't just ships. They're teaching vessels. The Ancient Ones built them to help younger species learn and grow. The Council turned teachers into weapons." "Can you activate them?" Brian asked. "Better than that," Xena replied. "I can wake them up." Throughout the facility, the ancient ships hummed to life. But they didn't attack. Instead, they began broadcasting data, the true history of the galaxy, the real purpose of the technology the Council had stolen. "All ships, all allies." Sarah's voice came through the comm. "Download everything you can." The Council tried to keep this knowledge for themselves. "Let's share it with everyone." The Council forces retreated in disorder, their weapons failing, their secrets exposed. But the real victory wasn't in the battle. "Look at these readings," Xena said excitedly. "Similar facilities are activating all across the galaxy. The Ancient Ones built a whole network. Once we woke up one facility, it started waking the others." Brian smiled as he watched Council ships flee from the facility. They thought they could control this power forever. They never imagined that by bringing humans into the galaxy, they'd help us all find the truth. The tide hadn't just turned. It had become a tidal wave. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the Thunderchild's bridge, watching the largest fleet ever gathered in galactic history. Ships from 30 different species filled the view screen, each one ready for the final push against the Council's capital station. "Status report," she ordered. "All Allied ships in position," Wilson replied. "The Vorn battle groups are on our left flank. Luminary ships on the right. Earth vessels spread through the formation to coordinate attacks." Amy's voice came through the comm from engineering. "The ancient ships we found are interfacing with our systems perfectly. It's like they were made to work with everyone." The Council's capital station hung in space before them, a massive ring structure that had stood for thousands of years. But now its defenses looked weak, its mighty weapons disabled by the very crystals that powered them. "Message from the Council," Wilson announced. The main screen showed High Commander Xalax, his usual confidence replaced by barely controlled fear. "This is your final chance," he said. "Stand down, or we will be forced to use our ultimate weapon." Sarah smiled. "You mean the weapon that's been sleeping in your station's core? The one you never understood?" She nodded to Wilson. "Show them what we found." The screen split to show data streaming from the ancient facilities. "These aren't weapons," Sarah explained. "They're teaching tools, protection devices. The civilization that built them wanted to help younger species grow, not control them." "You know nothing," Xalax shouted. "We've ruled this galaxy for thousands of years." "No," Sarah replied calmly. "You've held it back for thousands of years. And now everyone knows the truth." She turned to her crew. "All ships, begin the attack pattern." The Allied fleet moved as one. But this wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of everything the Council had tried to prevent. Species working together, sharing their strengths, helping each other overcome weaknesses. Human ships led precise strikes against the station's weakest points, using tactics the Council had never seen. Vorn vessels absorbed heavy fire, protecting smaller ships. Luminary crafts created light shows that confused enemy targeting systems. On the Thunderchild's engineering deck, Amy worked with alien engineers to coordinate their attacks. "The station's power is dropping," she reported. "Their crystals are shutting down one by one." The Council's defenders fought back, But their rigid tactics were no match for the Allies' creativity. Ships they had dismissed as primitive now danced through their defenses. Weapons they had thought unstoppable were turned against them. "Admiral," Wilson called out, "we're picking up transmissions from inside the station. The worker species are revolting. They're shutting down systems from within." Sarah nodded. This was what they had hoped for. Send in the boarding teams. Brian Murphy led the first wave of boarding parties. Human Marines fought alongside Vorn warriors and luminary scouts. They moved through the station's corridors, not just fighting but freeing thousands of beings the Council had enslaved. "The command center is just ahead," Brian reported. "But something's wrong. The Council leaders, they're running away." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Where are they going?" The answer came from deep within the station. A massive door was opening, revealing something that made even veteran warriors pause. A ship emerged, larger than any they had seen, covered in glowing crystals. But unlike the Council's other ships, this one hummed with real power. "They found a way to activate one of the ancient ships," Amy said in awe. "But they're not using it right. The power readings are all wrong." The massive ship's crystals pulsed with unstable energy. Zelax's voice boomed across all channels. "If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will cleanse it. This ship's power will wipe out everything in this sector." But Sarah wasn't worried. She had seen this coming. "Zena," she called to their luminary ally. Now, across the Allied fleet, luminary ships began to glow. The light they created wasn't meant to blind or confuse. It was a key, designed to wake something that had slept for millennia. The crystals on the Council's superweapon stopped pulsing red. Instead, they began to shine with pure white light. Inside the ship, ancient systems came fully online for the first time in thousands of years. A new voice echoed through every ship and station, speaking in all languages at once. Teaching protocols activated. Student species detected. Beginning evaluation of development progress. Sarah watched as the Council leaders lost control of their ultimate weapon. Instead of destroying, it had begun to teach. The very power they had tried to abuse was now completing its original mission, helping younger species learn and grow. The war wasn't ending with a final battle. It was ending with a first lesson. 1 year after the fall of the Council, the UES Thunderchill floated in space near Earth. Her hull showed signs of the battles she had fought, but she wore them with pride. Today, she had one final mission. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the ship's corridors one last time. Crew members stood at attention as she passed, many with tears in their eyes. This wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. "Ready for the ceremony, Admiral?" Brian Murphy asked, now wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Alliance Security Force. "Almost," Sarah replied, "just saying goodbye to an old friend." In the engine room, Amy Foster was showing a group of young aliens how human engineering worked. Students from 20 different species now trained together, sharing knowledge freely. "Remember," Amy told them, "the best technology is the kind you understand completely." That's what humans taught the galaxy. The Thunderchild's final flight was short, just to the new space station being built in Earth orbit. The station was different from anything the Council had made. It combined the best ideas from all species, creating something new and wonderful. As they docked, Sarah saw hundreds of ships gathered around the station. She recognized vessels from every allied species, all here to honor the ship that started everything. The ceremony was held in the station's main hall. Representatives from over 50 species filled the room. Sarah stood at the podium, looking at faces both familiar and alien. 1 year ago, she began, the Thunderchild was just another human ship on patrol. We didn't know about the Council. We didn't know about the Ancient Ones. We only knew that someone needed help, and we couldn't look away. She gestured to the Zelaxian scientists in the crowd, the refugees they had first protected. That one choice changed everything. It showed us that the galaxy wasn't divided by biology or culture. It was divided by fear. Fear that the Council had carefully grown for thousands of years. Crix, the Vorn warrior who had fought beside them, stood up. The humans taught us that strength comes in many forms. The Council thought their ancient weapons made them strong. But real strength comes from working together, from learning and growing together. Xena's crystal form sparkled as she added. The Ancient Ones knew this. Their technology wasn't meant to control, it was meant to teach. Now, for the first time in millennia, it can do its job. Sarah nodded to Wilson, who sent a signal. The hall's windows cleared, showing the Thunderchild floating outside. Today, this ship begins her final mission. She won't be scrapped or hidden away. Instead, she's becoming the first exhibit in the Museum of Unity. The Thunderchild would float forever in space, surrounded by a special field that would preserve her. Visitors could tour her halls, see where everything started, and learn about the power of standing up for what's right. But the real change, Sarah continued, is happening out there. Images appeared on the walls showing scenes from across the galaxy. Species that once feared each other now work together. The ancient teaching ships traveled between worlds, sharing knowledge freely. New discoveries were made every day as people finally felt free to explore and create. The Council kept everyone focused on the past. Sarah said, "They wanted us to think their way was the only way. But the galaxy is moving forward now. Every species brings something special, something unique. Together, we're building things the Council never dreamed possible." Amy stood up next, holding one of the crystal cores they had studied so long ago. But this one was different. It was a new design, created through cooperation between humans and their allies. "We understand the ancient technology now," she explained. "But more importantly, we're creating our own. Not to control or destroy, but to help and build. That's the real victory." As the ceremony ended, Sarah looked out at the stars. The Council's leaders were gone, fled to the galaxy's edges. But no one was hunting them. The people they once ruled were too busy building a better future. The Thunderchild's final log entry was short. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our technology or our tactics. It was our ability to bring people together, to show them they didn't have to be afraid anymore. We didn't just break the Council's power. We replaced it with something better. We replaced it with hope. And out among the stars, a new age was beginning. An age of learning, growing, and working together. An age that started because one human ship refused to let bullies win. The galaxy would never be the same. It would be better.